This week's parasha is VaYakel, which means and assembled, and Pekudei, which means accounts. It is a double portion, and it wraps up the book of Exodus. Starting at chapter 35 and ending at chapter 34, this parasha is a long list of very detailed instructions for how to build the tabernacle, exactly what needs to go in it, and exactly who can go in it. Starting with the parashat Terumah in chapter 25, great detail is given as to the construction of the tabernacle, the artifacts, the holy garments to be worn, and so on and so forth. Chapters 35 through 40 are essentially a reiteration of these very same details. And when the Lord says something more than once, it's pretty important. However, the Lord doesn't speak for his own amusement, and the one main difference in these passages is that in the previous portions, Adonai is speaking to Moses, and in VaYakel, Moses is repeating the instructions to the children of Israel, and they are carrying out the instructions. One might say that this seems a bit redundant, and the Torah could just as easily have said Moses explained everything to Israel and they just did it. However, the Lord never wastes his breath. By having Moses repeat the instructions to Bnei Israel, the Lord could ensure that they would be carried out exactly in the way he intended. VaYakel mainly deals with offerings for the tabernacle. All the work that Bezalel and Oholiab and wise-hearted women did in constructing the tabernacle, its interior, and the various artifacts. However, the first instruction Moses gives before talking about the tabernacle is a reminder to the children of Israel that they cannot work on Shabbat on pain of death. An interesting picture painted in this portion is a sense of community and how it functions. Everyone was asked to contribute whatever they had to furnish and beautify the tabernacle, so Adonai would have a place to dwell. Some items were expensive, like gold and silver and gemstones, and others were smaller, like nose rings and earrings, colored threads, skins, and so on. Both men and women gave, if they had anything to give and a willing heart. Pekudei, on the other hand, highlights another type of giving. An account was made by Ithamar, son of Aaron, by the command of Moses, of all the offerings collected and what was done with them. It describes the holy garments for Aaron. And his sons, which were very beautiful, with regal gold threads and gemstones. But the half shekel, a tax imposed on all men 20 years and up, was not optional. The sages point out that this offering, which was used to build the bases for the sanctuary, did not specify any kind of attitude. No matter how you felt or what you thought, you had to pay it if you were a male 20 years plus. Pekudei finishes by saying, in chapter 4-33, so Moses finished the work. Verse 34 goes on to say, then the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of Adonai filled the tabernacle. Whenever the cloud rested over the tabernacle, Israel stayed where they were. But whenever it lifted, they moved on. Now we know who really should have gotten credit for the invention of the GPS. The portion I chose to chant is Exodus 4-34-38. This passage speaks of the cloud and the pillar of fire that would appear by day and by night to show the Israelites where to go and when. The Lord guided his people in such a clear way so that no one could misunderstand where they needed to go. We clearly don't receive this method of guidance today, but the Lord does lead us in other ways. It's hard sometimes to know where we are supposed to go or what we're supposed to do. It's not like the Lord sends us text messages with clear instructions as to what we are meant to do with our lives or who we're supposed to be. But sometimes he will speak to us, whether that be through worship or prayer. Sometimes he just puts things on our hearts and we don't necessarily understand, but are compelled to do them. I know from experience it can be very difficult to know what he's saying and to accept what he's saying. But the most important thing is having a heart that's willing to listen when he is trying to tell me something. And even though his ways may not make sense to me all the time, I've found that there's a lot of blessing when we follow where he leads, no matter what his reasons are for it.